Okay. All right, everybody. We're back for part two of Edge of the Inner Sky. Um, Neil deGrasse Tyson had this very nice quote, something he said like on a YouTube video of his I saw. I think it was on his podcast, Star Talk. Neil deGrasse Tyson said, like, the decisions of people should not take man back into the cave, but it should take man beyond the stars, something of this magnitude. And what he was implying there was that the decisions of the civilization can either be efficient or inefficient. This is my personal view in the sense that the sound of laughter and tears can be heard in the same moment. You know, in in some stories we hear too much knowledge being a curse. That means in a world of lies, too much truth is going to be chaotic. Or in an illusion, trying to find truth in a simulation is kind of like trying to see beyond emptiness. And even in the Avengers movie there was something like that, I think, where it was like Thanos looks at Tony Stark and says, "You're not the only one cursed with knowledge." And what he means is that once you see a deeper dimension to a phenomena, the depth of that same dimension is like an added view. You see, when I speak about these words, there was a time in my childhood where these words entered my intelligence and my awareness for the first time. Eventually, through the repetition and the exploration of reality, one begins to see. Okay, guys, hold on. Let me see what's going on. Okay, the kid is in front of his parents, so yeah. um, Let me incorporate this actually. The child enters this world crying. It cries for how data has been processed by its intelligence and based on the texture of its experience. Sometimes the texture of the experience could be, if it's biological issue, it could be like the person is unhealthy, the person is in pain, the person is in some physical suffering. As if somebody in pain, you ask them what's the purpose of life is, and they'll tell you, I don't know if pain is the purpose of it, but it's definitely part of it. And in the sense that just like how we gain things in life, our ambitions, our goals are all sort of attainments we're seeking. Similarly, there are moments in life where things go away, where the pleasant state of mind in some sense falls into turbulence, yet it can come back into states of peace as well. That's the thing. Your greatest chaos is teaching you your greatest order. Your greatest order is teaching you your greatest chaos. This is why the sages back in the day were told, do not seek praise. Okay? Do not seek approval and do not seek disapproval. Which meant, in some sense, the world changes so often that when we come to try to save it, it has become a different world. This is why in history, especially in politics, we see many political groups who rebelled through justice against an injustice system. As they came into power, they eventually became unjust themselves. And the reason I find there will always be corruption in politics is because politics is evolving at a speed slower than the people. Our systems of governance are not evolving as fast as the minds of the people they're governing. Therefore, they will always be behind. Therefore, in order for a politician to survive, he has to honor the foundations of the past to attain. So it's like somebody enters a game, okay, and the game is not a good game, but it's a game. right? And so you have to follow the rules to be a certain character, to be a certain value of the game. Like, one thing you see the video game character not doing is wondering how the programmer of the game kind of wrote the game, you know, when you're playing that game, you know, that video game. So what I'm trying to tell you is the video game, the character, a character that has extended from the world will not doubt the world's reality. What you're made of, you don't doubt normally, okay? It's so fascinating when you realize the personality is a dynamic phenomena. It is not a static phenomena. You kind of notice what your whole intelligence is. Your presence is dynamic. Your presence is like riding a horse. Your personality is like reading a Wikipedia uh, article on horse riding. Like, it's like, go do the action. Go live the life to see what that life is living for. You don't understand what I've kind of acknowledged society to be is it is a mass state of mind. It is values. Society is rigged with a shitload of values. So what that means is, what is cultural differentiation? What is the difference between cultures? Okay. What is the main difference we find? It is different values. You come into a Western secular atmosphere of mind, and you see there is a level of freedom to make mistakes that in certain Eastern, let's say religious states, atmospheres of mind, it is not allowed. Do you see, as if one part of the world is really strictly listening to the rule book, a certain rule book, and a part of the world is like, you don't need a rule book, but we have society's rules, you know? So if the man's mind works with rules, it doesn't matter if you're getting them from a science textbook or a religious text, you know? It doesn't matter. You're going to eventually see we're creatures that capture ourselves in narratives and stories. This is why Jordan Peterson's entrance in the global stage, the moment he had that talk with Sam Harris, was a historic moment. Many didn't realize. It was the attempt, first time he tried to show people that we don't care for just the truth. We care for the efficiency of the utility of the idea and the cultural of the like in the importance of the ethos, the importance of what story is inspiring people behind in their subconscious, what is moving you in this life, okay? And it has to do with your artistic ability. You know, you can say imagination is art drawn with sensory data. That means, very hilariously, the colors of your imagination come from reality. For what that means is, it's very funny. What is not shaped, you can't imagine. You know, can you imagine emptiness right now? You can imagine the word, but can you imagine emptiness? You're a creature of form. Can you really imagine what nothing will be like? I mean, you can say you can't imagine it, but there is a blank experience between our waking state, like when we sleep. You see, what I realized was something that it could not have been taught to me. That's what I realized. And the only way I realized was only when I stopped a certain method of approach to this world. I had to stop it. I had to stop this animalistic loop, this animalistic kind of, every human being is in this. You know, it's not, don't think I'm just trust me, it's very funny when a human being speaks about himself, humanity listens. What I'm trying to say is that think of it this way. Again, as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, the person is either taking steps back into the cave. They're either evolving or devolving. Devolving means not maintaining the evolutionary state, right? Whenever you fail at something, what does that mean? Why is failure tragic for some people? Because a sort of projection of how reality should be from their eyes in their mind has not come to fruition. It's kind of like Noah building the boat and then suddenly in the middle of the ocean realizing there's a hole in it, you know? So it'd be that moment where you're like, the effort for an eternal successful mode or projection in your vision. Evolution is an eternal effort of a temporary creature to continue. That's what evolution is. It can be seen as that, you know. It's some sort of endless effort. When the concept of the endless or the concept of the infinite is, that is the edge of the finite. That is the edge of form. You see, the edge of our minds has only two crossroads it can go. It either goes to complete emptiness or it goes towards infinite fullness. And this infinite fullness will not be complete. What that means is, trust me, just start measuring. Like, there's so much data in this world. I don't know why I said it that way, but there's so much data. There's so much datum in this world that it's remarkable. It's remarkable in how many ways the world approaches the eyes and the attention of the existential phenomena, the experiencer of the moment. That is what you are. That is how you truly stand. You see, it was very funny. When I was younger, I thought I was something in somewhere. Then I realized the somewhere was happening because I was something. And I realized the something was in just an attention, an attributeless attention. That means if somebody comes and asks me, it's like, hey, Mr.Within, what do you believe? I will slap that belief of a belief from your hand. I will slap out that belief. Because let me tell you what I mean by that. I don't believe thought is the epitome of knowledge. I don't believe philosophy or any subjective landscape can fulfill the direct experience of the world. I feel that we are only objective physical beings, okay? We feel this, okay? But when we wonder about how this physical phenomena is occurring, its motivations of activity, your free will, has to be a character in a story to have choices to do things. Do you see the effort of individualism is the collective creation? It is the creation of the collective. It is in the most savage acts of man that people suddenly are like, holy shit, we don't need that here anymore. Like, that's what happened with war. Let me tell you, our ancestors, the same way we thought it was barbaric that men with fucking axes and swords and like barbaric weapons fought each other in the wars of ancient times and medieval times. The same way we are like, look at these savages, you know? Or you can imagine the caveman with clubs like hitting one another. Like, just like how we saw that was savage and stupid and oh my god, they were such devolved pioneer, like our ancestry didn't have an intelligence. We will be seen 10,000 years from now as the same stupid pioneers, the same stupid caveman hitting each other with the on the head. But we're no longer hitting each other with what do you call it? With weapons made of steel. We are hitting each other with weapons made of positions of reality, with ideas. So this is why I'm saying I am just present in an era of idea worship. That is why my answer to any belief will be: it is that you're not a thought. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help you if you believe, you know, there's a pink elephant in the yard, like purple elephant in the yard. It doesn't help you whether you believe it or not. You just have to go see. Do you see? You have to go know. So when somebody says you will only live life properly when you know it properly, that means you have to find out how your ability is not based on how lucky or unlucky you are. Your ability is based on how much there has been an intention to know. As the ancient texts say, as Christian, these graceful words find us from the Christian tradition. They say, know thyself. That means it's like as if there are deeper dimensions of collective truth underlying our individualness. Let me tell you what happened. It's hilarious, guys. This is something where you don't understand. And a part of me is like, I honor science because it has astonished me. Any school of thought, any expression in this world, any artwork I have seen, and it has in some sense set a flame. Like, you don't understand. There's some teachers in this world who they are not the teacher. It is the beauty of the moment. It is the incredible value. Suddenly, it's as if the person didn't think something was possible, suddenly ends up seeing their infinite possibilities. They are the ability for attention to be free before it has to be, before it needs to be. You know, this was the issue that I kind of like, a part of me, you don't understand. It's a very interesting position in 2019 talking about yoga, because the world has torn up the value of the word. When we forget the meaning of words, that's when civilization suddenly becomes gullible. There was a scene from this show where this warrior father was training her young daughter to be the ultimate warrior. And the young daughter was set into such extreme every single day, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, just fulfilling her duty of just doing martial arts, martial arts, martial arts. Eventually, the father was so angry and rude to her that she just goes, like, like a bit like crazy, and she starts kicking the father, and she breaks the father's leg. Okay, this kind of strict coach, kind of martial artist father. Okay, and the father goes to the hospital, comes back, is taken to the hospital, comes back, and the daughter's just staying there in the house, kind of shocked and scared, like how the father's going to react now. And the father goes to the daughter and says, "Well done, my daughter. You will be even stronger than me. You will continue to grow stronger." And that was an intense show for me, because I saw the sort of value system that different parts of the world can have to the same phenomena. It's like, trust me, there's one world here, but because we are many different eyes looking at this one world, there's many ways that the world is animating behind people's eyes. The way it animates, if it's efficient, they will find the collective. They will understand, okay, there's a reason like a dove, birds fly together in synchronistic waves, why animals of the same species are grouped, because they find the presence of a collective being. This collective being, you can see it as God, you can see it as unified fealty, whatever, you can see it as whatever you want, but what is important to see this collective state as is the vision, the efficient vision of humanity. That means, regardless of how spiritual this world wants to get culturally, I will shout at it that we cannot let go of the concept of linear time, because without it, we will not care for the future. Sometimes you need your ego, because your ego are the glasses that are helping you see the world. You have to recognize something. Society is a machine at this point. It is this bewildered beast. That's what society is. It doesn't matter if you think it's the society of Canada, or if it's the society of a country less fortunate. I felt I was kind of blessed in a strange way to be born in Iran. I was born in Iran, and at the age of 7, I came to Canada, and I went back and forth during the summers to visit the majority of my family that lived in Iran. And I could tell you this, that I began to see two different cultures. And I began to see the restriction of mind that one society allowed, and the freedom of mind one society allowed, and where it led. Strangely, you begin to see religious societies have hide it in a bunker to avoid the incredibly like exponential growth of technology. Okay, you see, technology evolved because a person's mind was free enough to conceive a new idea. You see, I find genius ideas are traveling through people's minds every day. It is just that people do not value it. You know, I remember I was taking this Uber ride home, and I was in a unique state of consciousness at that time. That means I was coming back from a party. And I remember that I asked the Uber driver, and I was like, "Hey, man." I termed the question in a very unique way. I told him, "Do you experience a creative dimension throughout your day?" And that pretty much, I asked the guy, "Do you do anything creative throughout the day?" That means, do you consciously create something throughout the day? And his answer was no. He said he writes sometimes, but he said no. He said his life is too much of a important, busy routine to in some sense try to think of ideas that don't put money in your pocket. You know, pretty much that's how society, Western society, unfortunately, not the Western society. It's just it's the leash of economy on the neck of the free creative free will, the leash of economical survival, which commands repetition of the same task to perfection. Best thing is that if the society is lost in a loop, it at least attains mastery. That means you do everything, even though it's the same thing, but you're doing it in a new way, in a new state of mind. So it doesn't matter what you physically do. It's like the novelty of the state of mind is its own ability to contemplate a new vision. So anyways, I remember the conversation kind of like he started. I asked him why. I asked him why don't you have a creative dimension? You know, aside from his answer of his common task, but he told me it's not like he never tried. He just didn't feel compared to the creativity that was out there. He was creative to that level. And I told him, I asked him if it's okay for me to share my idea on creativity with him, and he said yeah. And I told him that the way I see creativity is that it's how much you value your ideas. I feel everybody gets ideas throughout the day, but do they know how valuable the idea they're getting is? Do they know how valuable the moment is, the data they're receiving is? And if it's not valuable, if you don't value yourself, you probably don't value what you do. This is how a person gets messy, because a part of themselves doesn't value themselves, so they don't care if the world burns in front of them. And laziness is you caring for the world to burn. That means you're not choosing to live. You're choosing to just exist. That is the issue. That is the issue of that I will forever look at the New Age community, and I could say I could entertain any metaphysical effort to extract the unknown. I will always contribute in that area, but I will never say we all need to go meditate in caves, because I don't feel even the notion of enlightenment was meant to be found in a cave. In the Sufi Dervish tradition, there was this very incredible notion where the person said the guy is true. They said back in Sufi culture, enlightenment was acknowledged as a pearl of wisdom, the ultimate wisdom. And so they felt the somebody who had the pearl, who had the vision, the enlightened vision in some sense, he was not just enlightened in the mountains alone, he was enlightened in the busiest marketplace. That means his awareness of how self is present, it doesn't matter where or how the self is present, it's just the awareness is underlying it and is there. So at the edge of the inner sky is sensory data. So it's very, so this is how I'm kind of structuring it, because that's the artists are going to be the next neurologists. They have to be, because the next part of neurology is imagination. So pretty much psychologists and neurologists are going to integrate. And as they're going to integrate, they're going to begin speaking about the further explorations into what imagination is. And imagination, I remember playfully, I play with words a lot. And imagination for me was an unknown nation of images. It was a very unknown way how vast amounts of various classified data were present to me. You see, imagination is, let's say it's an activity. Let's say if I'm imagining right now a canoe, just like I'm on my balcony of my house, and I just imagine a canoe just slowly hovering in the air, like this hover canoe. And this hover canoe is just going between the trees and the air and whatnot. Okay? You see, as I am imagining this right now, let's talk about it very down to earth. As I'm imagining a canoe just hovering in the air in front of me right now, okay? Like an old school Native American canoe, okay? Now, that means that a part of my, oh my God, I gotta get the charger or the computer's gonna die. Hold on, guys. Okay. So I'm back, guys. Just a quick intermission in the middle. Another one. um, you see, when we look at what the notion of revelation and divinity is, it's kind of like a caterpillar, a butterfly remembering how it was a caterpillar. It's being defined by a new experience of how the world is. And I don't know how to say this, but I finally understand what Rumi meant when he said you have to uh, work as hard as you work in the visible world, you got to work in the invisible world. That means the same amount of alertness, attention, and care you have for external phenomena, if you have it for internal phenomena, you will suddenly find as if both wings of the bird have opened. That means you are no longer tormented by chaotic phenomena. You are no longer tormented by ordered phenomena. For the first time, the intelligence has nothing to believe in. It is just witnessing a grand landscape, a grand landscape that's not just objective. It has subjective value too. So the edge of the inner sky is the outer sky. It is how the sense of a sort of division of the character arises based on how the free will and the result of the free will is interpreted. Here's the thing. It's as if everybody can make a decision, but the whole point of the decision is that by making that decision, you are allowing something unique to move on in your attention compared to other things. So for me, think of it this way. Like, I honestly wish, like, I should probably set up a Discord and have live streams where groups of people are talking together. I think that'd be nice. But I think the way people see imagination is going to require a sort of linear psychoanalytic approach, and is going to require a non-linear creative approach. For the first time, artists and how can I tell you? Let's say the most notable scientists and the most notable neurologists and psychologists sit down with the most notable artists and they interview them about their imagination, about how the free will moves. In what world does the free will move? And how is the free will chosen to free willingly allow the world to have meaning? Because you see, my heart is beating before I even think about it. I'm naturally breathing before I even think about it. Okay? So nature is maintaining a vast amount of this biological process. Okay? What seems to be that extra idea of me in a world seems to be the part of like how the mind is between worlds. The mind is an awareness of reality oscillating between consciousness and matter. That's why I say it's a bridge. That's why I say it's kind of like an intermediary. The mind is an intermediary to your soul. The intermediary only exists because there's something to say, you know? There's something for, like, there's something deeper there. Uh, I, I feel that I feel that the educational systems around the world should teach children to begin approaching their creativity like Zen masters. I honestly feel they should start sharing Zen quotes with a lot of young kids in the world, you know? Because it brings you into a still, silent, and alert position of being. Your life doesn't begin with turbulent conditions accepted before actually examined. You see, a lot of your life you automatically have faith in. Like, you got to accept that a meteor is not going to hit instantly the earth and everything's going to get destroyed. That's why you're like, okay, you know, I could walk outside. So it's a sort of the opportunity of cost of the attention will suggest what that means is an opportunity cost is this economical notion that okay, like the guy goes and does this job, so he could have been doing another job making more money or something, like there was an opportunity cost to his decision. Okay, so I'm saying there's an opportunity cost to your attention in regards to even examining the construction of the philosophy of reality and what ratio of it is unknown, again, imagination, what ratio of it is known, which is again the efficiency of the rational mind. So you see, that's the beautiful things. We're not just creatures that get thoughts. We are creatures in some sense that have access to a field of data and a field of natural forces that is, believe it or not, preserving most of the body. Like I was thinking, oh my God, if 70% of my body is just like they say, scientists say, it's like water, like like 70% of like it's just like how 70% of the world is filled with the oceans. In some sense, 70% of your body is fluid. Okay, and for me it's I'm like, am I right now controlling, like I don't know how to say it to you, but I have wondered about the relationship of thought with biology to an incredible depth where I began to see it's a duality we're diving into. You either think matter is here first or you think consciousness. Any person who feels consciousness is here first will be drawn towards either spiritual ideas or religious ideas. Any person who feels matter was here first will be drawn to something. Like I'm telling you, it's not the soul is a game, is a toy. The concept of a soul for a civilization is a toy given to it because we're a young species. Okay, well, our species is behaving, I find, in ways where from the primitiveness of the animal came the foolishness of the child. The savageness of the animal evolved into the foolishness of the child, and the foolishness of the child evolved into the clarity of what was here. God is a moment unburdened by a need for truth to be here. Children can attain a state of mind where before thinking they have to react to every situation of life, they begin observing situations. I believe a person's intelligence doesn't have room to breathe until they're observing their moment. When you observe your moment, you notice the more still and silent your physical body is, the more the intensity and wilderness of the mind can shift. So that means that when a person, for example, my notion of meditation is that the person throughout the day, any kind of life they have, just for, you know, start with 10 if you're really busy, but make it up to 20. For 20 minutes, just go in one part of the park or somewhere in nature where there's trees and just nature, actual nature there, and go there, okay? First thing you do is you go touch a tree, go touch the nearby tree, and then just go find somewhere to sit. It could be on a bench, it could be on the grass, it could be right beside the tree, it could be wherever, okay? But just find a place to sit. And as you sit there, okay, just be completely still and silent, and there is no notion of meditation. There's no notion of enlightenment. Forget every philosophy, forget every idea. You're just sitting there still and silent and watching the moment, how the moment is being, okay? And as you're there, just begin wondering how life is, what life is to you right now. Ask yourself what is real, because your intelligence does not evolve to greater dimensions until your reality evolves. Your reality only evolves with direct, sincere engagement. It's like the lion. The reason the lion doesn't go eat the remains of like another animal's kind of like leftover food, the lion kills the gazelle itself, because that's when it is certain of what it's certain of the value it has got. Okay. Um, In the Lotus Sutra, there's a saying that says, "Keep your mind alive and free, without abiding in anywhere or anything." Keep your mind alive and free. How you keep your mind alive and free is by recognizing how you're defining it. Do you believe the way you're thinking about yourself right now can be a limit, can be limiting how you are as a person? Can you, is it, do you think this, in 2019, this is why I say we're a young species, because the child cannot confront certain truths about what it is. When it can't confront truths, desire becomes an escapism. And the subtle form of this desire is a metaphysical desire. The person, because he believes he's a soul, he can go do anything now. No, this world works with nature's laws and motion. Okay, and we have to not only study nature's laws, but we have to find a humility where we can be content with a pre-thought state of view. That means I have a memory. It's not even like, I don't even say it's like a profound spiritual experience. Like, no, it was just a memory of me in my childhood before I learned language. I was just sight. I was a moment of existential sight. I was space. I was conscious space. And then as phenomena began moving in various patterns in this conscious space, suddenly there came, what arose was individuality. That means, it's very funny. Your knowledge gravitates to you based on your wonder for the unknown. If you have disallowed the unknown from your life, you will never see anything as creative. You know, somebody can bring a new work of art in front of you, and you'll be like, this is just like somebody else's. Your mind has been defined by your past, and hence you are in the program. You will eventually try to free your mind through an animal. Do you know what that means? That means when they corner an animal, it gets savage. Okay, when the individual in society is isolated in a way where it feels it is not being seen by the world, like, that's the requirement of our minds, by the way. Okay, our minds have an urge to exist in tribal dynamics. Okay, because we were tribes early on. Our ancestors chose to speak to one another rather than just, hide in caves. Okay, there was a sort of emergence of a responsibility for a collective maintenance. If this collective maintenance is forgotten, all the children of humanity have been led astray. If suddenly the child, like every person, I consider this, and of course I'm saying this respectfully, but any person who has had thoughts of using a bridge the wrong way, it's as if, just remember, 4 billion years of evolution it took for this science project to be here. And how is it being valued? Do you feel people care for their lives, or they don't? It's so much easier to break something than create it. You can see there's even events where, like, these huge giant, like, demolition, like, vehicles are like destroying the building, or there's or how can I say it? It's like this demolition of a building and the whole building falls at once. It's an instantaneous destruction of something which probably took years to create. Okay. So that's the thing. This science project called humanity is worth living for. And it's not going to be easy at first because there's no greater system at work. As if where there's no organizational structure, there's nothing to be organized. It's just savage movement. The artist has to draw with whatever it finds. There's no luxury. I believe there's two types of artists. There's ones who have their tools, and there are ones where their tools find them. There's some people who have to go find ability. There's some people where ability finds them. They just remember. They snap out of any belief into an idea of themselves when they realize that the law of this universe is change. Everything changes. So when I'm speaking about imagination, I am saying it is a changing nation of images. There's a civilization subjectively occurring behind our eyes. This civilization subjectively, it's based on that, how much we behave. It's honestly, you are right now, the way you're behaving with the world you see is because of the world you see. As Henry David Thoreau says, it's not what you're looking at that matters, it's what you see. It's not that, like, that rocker that rock star. What was his name? He said, "Animal I have become." Papa Roach or something. I don't know. Like there was this musician who said, "Animal I have become." I'm like, no, animal we were. What does that mean? That's one of the most incredibly poetic things in language I see. You see, when you stop trying to be the lion in the forest, the lion does not, in some sense, go kill 20 gazelles and store it for later. The lion eats when it's hungry. And I have this firm belief that people will respond to the world when it's real enough. They will care for things if it's real enough for them. If suddenly they see the value of the mind of 8 billion beings. And what's going to happen is very funny, guys. Like, I remember there was this conspiracy theory. Like, a friend of mine was telling it me, and honestly, for me, conspiracy theories is like, why see an enemy behind a door you will never open? You know? it's like, what's the point? You know? So, well, my friend was saying there's this conspiracy that there's going to be, like, extraterrestrial kind of fake invasion in order to manipulate people or something, you know. And I was like, how hilarious, because I see that the same pattern occurring internally way before that conspiracy ever needs to occur. I see people, in some sense, the moment we came into groups, we began seeking ideas that were agreeable to all of us. The fact that we have the internet and we have social media, it means for the first time a part of people's minds can be a position in cyberspace. To be honest, the internet requires a lot of nonsense to be put into it because it has to get over the chaos first. Do you know how much of the internet, like when you search on Google, do you know what tiny percentage of index data that is? Henry David Thoreau, he said, it's not what you're looking at that matters, it's what you see. So when I look at matter, it's not just what is matter that matters, it is what I see. And the depth of that sight implies an observer outside of the objective phenomena witnessing it, even though the ignition of this observer is through the eyes of the person. Okay, even though right now I'm seeing in front of me a cup, but how I'm calling this a cup and where the even idea of the word cup exists is not in the objectival space. It's kind of like your thoughts are in an invisible room. You kind of see them there, but they're not there. Okay, I can again imagine that canoe hovering, and I could see it there, but it's not there. It's in the invisible vision of the mind. It is how you are given access to reality, and you kind of see when you wonder about imagination, something unique happens. Reality becomes organized given imagination. It becomes something. It becomes a way of creation already here. So that's the unique thing. I like it. I like the fact that we are in a challenge. I think every generation of human beings must find the greatest puzzle and solve that puzzle. And that puzzle is, what is the greatest efficient vision and contribution, or contribution to the efficient vision? As if all human beings put aside their ideas and they're like, whoa, our species and civilization is here, and we got to forget any idea, and we got to create an atmosphere where before we have tolerance, we need tolerance or intolerance. We watch, we see how the data communicates. We give the children who've never thought they will ever hold a microphone a voice, and we see what those children say. For me, the thing is, Western society, it's like this, guys. It's like we were born in hell and we're trying to get to heaven. Okay? This hell is a state of mind where, oh man, it's suffering, it's garbage, man. I gotta go become a billionaire and then be happy. You know? In a condition, in a way where the mind has to listen to the world, it will feel enslaved. Therefore, it will listen to its desires if the desire promises freedom. Anybody promises you freedom, guess what? You know, they're going to ask you to do endless things for them before they give you that freedom. So that's why I feel freedom has to only be given and received instantly. you can't you can't like follow some guy's teachings to become enlightened. This is why for me there's no, I feel the gurus died long time ago. What is left now are advanced communicators and pilots of consciousness, human beings who are acknowledging the full dimensions of their reality as a meaning of what a fulfilled life is, where imagination becomes subtler data that formulates based on the character you see yourself and the story you see yourself in. It's very important because consciousness, pretty much atoms, have led to a linguistic simulation of endlessly, you can imagine the future in various ways. Pretty much we have infinity, but it's a hollow infinity. It's kind of like what I experienced when I was really young, when like a closet in my house in Iran had like the two closet doors would open and it would be these two mirrors facing one another. And I would go stand in between them and there would be an infinite optical illusion of my reflection. So I would see that infinite illusion, and it was for the first time I saw infinity to be empty. It was through an optical illusion of my sensory data. It was as if like that was evidence of how infinity could be empty. And so what that means is it's a sort of emptiness that doesn't mean there's nothing there. It just means it's not a thing anymore. You can't only use a materialistic approach to uncover the mystery of the material imagination. It's a unique thing. It's something where we're wondering, is imagination being caused or is something else being the result of it? I find personally, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I feel Noam Chomsky, who is a person I honor, um, that means I will always be an audience member in his talks. But Noam Chomsky perhaps considers that it is a sort of scientific it is the subtler programs of nature as the DNA. So it's as if pretty much if you believe science, we're just objective beings, okay? If you truly believe that, sorry guys, hold on, I gotta check something. Guys, while I was running up the stairs right now, a thought came into my mind, which I have to share. Maybe a bit out of context, but I'm going to share it. The task of the citizens becomes to share the incredible efficiency they see in the world, and the task of the social reform, how society chooses based on that data to reform itself, is to wonder about, just listen to the efficiency, the efficient visions of the citizens. And what I mean is that I feel it's like what's governing us has created a wall between us and itself. And usually that wall is created with the bricks of fear. But I will tell you, this we need to recognize it all has to do with how deep, not how deep, but how far human beings are envisioning together about their civilization. And the way it is that it's pretty much like this governing system over, it's like pretty much like the shepherd, and the sheep, okay? The individual will find itself not as able as the governing major institution, obviously, but the person in some sense can say it's as if, like, let me say it in a better metaphor. Let me say it's as if a lion and its cubs, okay? And the cubs find themselves in the jurisdiction of the lion, okay? That means the lion is watching how the individuals in society is occurring. And for me, I have no problem with, in some sense, kind of free surveillance of everything. But I feel it's what occurs with what is seen. It is how much the person recognizes, holy shit, physically we're temporary creatures. What if we tried an efficient approach where citizens, their voices were being heard, and what was hearing their voices began realizing that when you are leading people or governing like a group of people or something, it's one of those things where you have to listen to the group. It's an issue of an inner sense of equality. That means it's as if the person driving the car feels it himself to be superior to the passengers and everybody in the car. Okay? Just because he's maintaining the whole thing. You know? It is what's, I don't know if people have given it a term before, but I call it is the governing ego. That means it's the egos that are creating the government, that are being the government. It's very fascinating. For me, political science is an incredible field to study. When I speak about these things, I'm always trying to speak with some relative respect for that domain. Because politics has been the various ways man's mind has moved collectively, and what they have chosen, what they have valued. And I recognize, due to scarcity, barbarism is continuing. So in some sense, I feel when robots take over the jobs, human beings will be like, wow, we don't have to do all the physical labor of the day that we used to. So what now? And that's when we will start asking, oh my God, is there something more like to the being than just objective existence? You see, whatever you're occupied with, it becomes your purpose. Okay? It's kind of like that ta-da moment of whatever happens to you and wherever you end up. Like right now, this moment you're existing, you were destined to be exist in this moment. Like, do you see how easy it is to connect the story to a phenomena? um, when I was younger, I heard a notion, which was an Islamic notion, and it was the notion of the seven skies. And there was this notion on the day of the apocalypse that the sky will crack. Okay? And I found that to be very fascinating. Because let me tell you, sometimes it doesn't matter what people say, it is the ears that hear that matter. Okay? It's how the ears are hearing the world. How much people can see the freedom they seek behind their eyes is a freedom that everybody is seeking. Everybody is seeking efficient ways for this phenomena to have more than it can. For me, fear will trap you. Any person who's violent has a fear of not being violent. They're afraid. They're afraid of being the opposite of that action, violent action, because they feel that's the issue. Violence opens levels. It's kind of like, I don't know. Let's change route. There's a sentence I wrote where I said, it's about the roars of existence in your heartbeat, and I said the collective lives on. The collective lives on within the individual. The collective is the moment. The collective is beyond the moment. No instruction needed thereof. I'm going to say some things about my approach to what I feel the value of art will be. I feel there's definitely signs you can see about the health of a civilization. And those signs are a civilization is kept by pillars. That means there has been something all our ancestors have been acknowledging as a value, and that's why that value has continued so far and in some sense evolved. It was the efforts of all human beings to be human, to be humanity. Okay, and so the notion of humanity is in some sense kept by pillars, which are various values, their inner values, their qualities that the world should remain in, that our ancestry and our lineages were like, okay, let's pay attention to these ideas and let these ideas live on through our attention, compared to the incredible amounts of data that the human being is introduced to often. Trust me, it's like some people feel when you surf on the web, they're like, man, why are you like so on the internet or something? And it's very easy to say that it doesn't matter what you're looking at. Right now, I'm looking at a screen, okay, of my computer, but when I look at like the tree outside in the yard, the whole moment is a screen. It's a screen where objective phenomena is present in three-dimensional space, and yet there's colors. There are colors to it. So there's a sort of uh, system of how the world is appearing. To the sensory data is orbiting around the idea of yourself, where your free will exists in. There has to be somewhere the data should go that, in some sense, it's like your mind is a subjective container of objective phenomena. The way it contains this phenomena becomes the story of your world. And the moment you're in a story, you will be influenced as a character. That means, like, I'll tell you a very incredible story. This again comes from Islamic. It's an Islamic story. Um, the story is kind of like it's back in the day, and this Muslim guy, he goes. This man who's Muslim, he goes and sees a bunch of people worshiping a tree, like legit worshiping and bowing down to a tree. And he looks at those guys and he says, "There is one God, and He has no partner." You know, he says there is one true God, and He has no partner. Of course, take the context of the story. There's a reason I'm saying. And so what happens is that the guys are like, no, this tree is our God, man, get away, you know. And so what happens is this guy's like, I'm gonna cut this tree. And as the story goes on, suddenly there's a more sophisticated metaphysical structure to the story, where suddenly Satan, through the form of a person, comes to this man and says, I'm Satan, and I won't let you cut this tree these people are worshiping. And the man says, you cannot stop me, because there is only one true God. He says it to Satan. And Satan and this guy, Satan through the form of another man, like they start fighting. They start fighting in such a way, but the man who wants to cut the tree, the Muslim man, the Islamic guy, he has his strength, is he overpowers the other guy. He beats the guy, he beats Satan in human form to the ground and says, I'm going to cut this tree. And the whole moral of this story is about weakness of character. That's the reason I'm saying it. So what happens is the Satan, as he's on the ground, he looks at this guy. He's like, wait, don't cut the tree. And the guy's like, he's about to cut it. And he says, don't cut the tree. Every night I will put 3 gold coins outside of your door, but don't cut this tree. Okay? And so the guy, suddenly he sees desire has infected his character. Suddenly he's like, if you don't, I will cut this tree. And the guy's like, I promise I will. And he's done. So he doesn't cut the tree. He goes home and he waits at night angry. He's angry. He's like, I should have cut the tree. And he's angry. Suddenly he opens the door and he sees there's 3 gold coins. He takes it and he's like, I made a good deal. The next night he suddenly opens the door and sees there's 3 gold coins. Okay? But the third night, suddenly, this guy sees there's no gold coins. And the next day, he gets up, with his axe, and he's like, I'm going to go cut the tree. He goes to cut the tree, and suddenly the same guy appears. The same Satan through human form appears again, and the people who are worshiping the tree are watching this. Okay? And so what happens in the story, okay, is that the guy goes to cut the tree. He's confronted by the evil force again, and in that moment, he's like, they get into a fist fight. They get into a physical fight again, but this time, the guy in human form is stronger than him and overpowers him and throws him to the ground. And so this guy looks at him and he says, how was it that the first time I fought with you, I was stronger than you? How did you suddenly become stronger, this much stronger? Okay? And this is the moral of the story, where Shaitan looks at this guy and says, because before your action was inspired by your truth. Now it was inspired by your desire, by the future that hasn't come yet, but your mouth is watering for. And so suddenly, if that's the story, that your character can, by the environment, be provoked into certain ways of behavior, okay? And you have to step out of this. And I'm telling you, the way you step out of it is by observing how phenomena has been contained by you. Think of it this way, you're a gift that you've wrapped, but now you're opening the gift you've wrapped, okay? You are, in some sense, unboxing the way you had boxed the universe. So guys, thanks for listening. Something I'm going to say about the wallpaper I chose. I don't know who the artist is. Anybody who knows, definitely share. And if there's any problem with the artwork, please let me know. But the reason I was so drawn to this artwork was the notion of a sort of serenity. Think of as if the guy who's driving this ship, okay, and he's looking out the window. Just think of how his state of mind is, that we are all flying as a group in the clouds at a very, this doesn't seem to be a very fast kind of high-speed machinery. It seems to be gently moving through the clouds, yeah. Or it could be high-speed, who knows, but... But my notion is, in that guy's vision, the world is preserved in a way where serenity has automatically been more the outcome. So your mind can be structured, pretty much what I'm saying. Okay, it's been structured by how you were spoon-fed. You weren't just spoon-fed food, and that food became a part of your physical being, but you were also spoon-fed ways that you contained the world. This is the conditioning that some people talk about, and for me, I say it's pretty much it's the first waves of data that become your subconscious ethics. People's morality is coming from their conscience. Their conscience is from what they feel is a balanced harmony in the world. okay, of not even in the world, in their moment. We are creatures that cannot avoid balance. There is a sort of balance to the mind where it is no longer in the Yoga Patanjali Sutras. They said your consciousness, this moment, is like an orb, glass orb, moving through many colored surfaces of cloths, many colored cloths. And the idea of it is simply suggesting that you are an attributeless attention, and the various phenomena that occurs and things that move in your attention give you the color that you make your idea of self out of, give you the clay you make your idea of self out of. It is data that is being you, but it is the free will's ability to contain individuality, to even see a world where it's possible, that gives it its energy. Your energy is not just physical, like a person can drink as many protein shakes as they want, but but their energy comes out of the will to live. And the will to live comes for the will to live for what has value. That means there was this show, again, I often use it because I found it was an incredible show, called the Attack on Titan, and there's a character there who's in this humanity's extinction scenario, and he's dying, and he looks at his captain and he says, "Was I useful to humanity?" That's like all this man wanted to know before he died. And the captain says, "Yes, you were, and humanity will not go extinct." And it was one of those situations where I realized the dying man's regret is what he could have done or what could have happened. When we have our attention on that, we will instantly reorganize the species' behaviors. There has to occur a revolution in all branches of knowledge, in all streams of how thought has been sculpted, how thought has been kept and shaped. We're in a world of shapes, You can get rid of all you got to look at it before you bring in emotions. Your intelligence accesses life as a designer. You're first seeing design. When I'm speaking to you, it's a movement of design. On some level, believe it or not, speech is not speech. It is awareness of movement, which is being sound. Victor Hugo, this European philosopher, has this quote where he says, I believe he was European, he says, nothing is more powerful than an idea in which its time has come. We free the world by first freeing ourselves from the way we think the world has to be. Then we observe it anew. As we observe it anew, there comes a new clarity. This clarity will be an abidance to your rhythmic, dynamic involvement and just abidance. Okay, so you're going to recognize you are just a presence of nature. Then you're going to recognize you're a presence of nature with unique opportunities that many other species on this planet don't have. One of these opportunities is to appreciate and entertain the sophistication of a subjective existence where rationality and irrational ideas live. They live in a subjective landscape. Morality, the moral landscape that in some sense Sam Harris wrote about, this moral landscape is a subjective landscape. It is a way, though. It's like every other landscape that has ever existed. It's like it is just the existence of the subjective realm, which can, with your thoughts, because they change quicker than your body does, your physical body, so you get a lot of thoughts throughout the day, or you can at least. It depends on your style of freedom. Oh. I feel that we have to pay attention to culture to first see how it moves. I feel pretty much we should study everything like an exotic animal. Like that nature photographer filming like that, you know, a rare tiger kind of stepping out of its cave or something. So pretty much we have to have a tolerance to see how the world is happening and then see how our ideas are going to happen to the world. We have to have a humility. We have to have an evolutionary return towards nature internally. We have to first understand that we are how nature is standing right now. We are natural beings. Because we're natural beings, we're involved in a natural landscape, in a natural world. The person is not just who they are, you know, the person is not just their soul, because if you think you're a soul, you will ignore all the objective data. You will be a fool. Who said the idea of the soul has to be defined? Who said it's definable? Who said that it has even dimensions? I speak about it, but I'm saying the unknown should never be shaped. It cannot. It cannot. I could sit here talk endlessly. It cannot. So I understand the spears of my knowledge that I'm throwing in these unknown skies. But for me, it has to do with the value of the living phenomena and how it has chosen to even perceive the notion of intelligence. Is intelligence just what is useful for yourself? When you look at it, yourself is temporary. You of course, you can just live for yourself your whole life, but yourself is just one lifetime. So it's as if you're living for one person. And you totally can. You know, you can just live for yourself. You can make the world your enemy and go hide in the mountains. But in some sense, you have to also see the value of something being here rather than nothing. That means if there's a glass of cold orange juice, which like you remember, like you I don't know how to say it, but I'm trying to tell you, you structure the mind, you come to a state of certainty. In that certainty, you suddenly push yourself into uncertainty. When you push yourself into uncertainty, it's as if the child has jumped into the swimming pool for the first time and experiencing underwater. You see, the child is experiencing a reality, and of course, children must definitely, I mean, like that, this is a testament to the intelligence of the child. Children uh, never there's no need to walk alone, don't walk alone. That's my suggestion. Anyways, we're going too off. The world moves in your eyes. Your eyes are present. The world's movement is the presence of your eyes. The presence of your eyes are the observer. The observer will find its meaning in regards to what it observes. Now, the observer can choose to embrace the condition or can choose to remain unconditional. When you choose to remain unconditional, you will be drawn towards the excitement of experience, direct experiential activities. You know, you will become an experience hunter, some have said. You want to see the evolution of your experience. But there are ways where abidance by your true nature surpasses any hierarchical fixed structure on a changing world. That is when you acknowledge the inner sky. You suddenly see the depth of the world is how your mind has looked into it. You embrace reality. It is the grand performance of ever-changing stardust. I hope this talk has served you. Much blessings and namaste. And I'll leave you with this quote from Jonathan Swift. He says, "Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others." And just by hearing his first sentence, vision is an art. because art is how there's a sort of freedom to embrace all forms of data, not to just uh, see one thing and just limit ourselves sight to that. Much blessings and also.